Hello, welcome back to another video. My name is Gemma and today we are going to be wrapping up all the books that I read in September that weren't part of Shorty September. So you may have seen my video from the weekend which wrapped up all of my Shorty September reads and did my reading stats. If you missed that, I'll link it below. But today I'm going to wrap up everything else that I read. We are also going to be doing the Booky Bank. I will talk about this at the end of the video, so I'll wrap up what I read first and then we will do this at the end. Everything is time stamped and chaptered, so just skip to whatever interests you and or watch the whole thing and help my retention rate. But yeah, let's start with the books. So the first book I finished in September was The Trees by Percival Everett. I read this because at the time it was longlisted, it is now shortlisted for the Booker Prize 2022. And I have mixed feelings about this. I really loved the first half of the book. So this is a book about sort of race in America, and we're following a cast of characters in a small town, particularly some police, and they find the body of a white man and the body of a black man sort of mutilated. The black man has the white man's testicles in his hand, but this black man goes missing, this black body goes missing, and then another body turns up, another black man, well, the same black man, also testicles in hand, and the story sort of progresses from there. So it is a social commentary on race and inequality, slavery, the legacy of slavery in communities, and I was quite pleasantly surprised in the beginning of this book to find that it had a comedic element that I thought was very well done. However, by the middle of the book I felt that it was getting really repetitive. The comedic elements were starting to verge on the ridiculous, and the ending left me quite nonplussed, really. So I gave it 3 stars. It was fine, but it didn't set my world on fire. And I think, to be fair, the ending, if you're like more intelligent than me, you probably got more out of it, but for me it just missed the mark. The next book I finished was The Test by Sylvain Neuvel, and I have been raving about this to anyone who will listen to me. So this is available on Audible Plus. So if you have an Audible subscription, it is free. It's 2 hours long. It was incredible. So in this we follow a man who is taking a citizenship test, and I think that is all you want to know going in. That is all I knew going in, and it blew my mind. So yeah, 5 beautiful sparkling stars. This book rocked my world. The next book I finished was The Rooftoppers by Katherine Rundell. This is a children's book, a middle grade book, in which we follow a young girl who is sort of rescued from a shipwreck by a man, and then something happens that forces them to effectively go and search for her mother to see if her mother is still alive in Paris. So this was nice. It gave me sort of like nostalgic feels in the way that it was written. I particularly loved the sort of adoptive father character. I thought he was really well done. But ultimately I found it a bit dull. Sorry, I know Katherine Rundell is like a lot of people's like favourite children's author, but it was just a bit meh for me, to be honest. I will try more of her work. I won't write her off based on this one book, but it was fine. Meh. The next book I finished was A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. So this book is dual timeline. We follow a young girl in sort of modern South Sudan and sort of like her experience walking to water every day for her family. And then we flash back to, I think it's the 50s, when civil war is sort of raging through South Sudan, and a young boy is separated from his family, and it's his experience sort of effectively wandering through South Sudan, ending up in refugee camps, the violence that he witnesses, and it's based on a true story. So I think his name was Salva, and he is a real person, and he now currently leads charitable work, building wells and stuff in South Sudan in different villages. I liked this book. I found it really informative to learn about the civil war in South Sudan. It was something I didn't really know much about, and also sort of like the warring between different tribes and that sort of thing, as well as the political unrest. So I found it quite educational in that regard. And obviously Sylvain himself is an incredible person, and he went through a lot of stuff in his life. The way it was written didn't really work for me. I found sort of like the switching of timelines quite jarring, which is odd for me because I read a lot of split timelines, so I can't quite put my finger on what it was I didn't like about that. I also thought it was too short. This was like a 3-hour audiobook, and I felt like it didn't give the story enough time. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars, but I would say it's worth a listen or a read. Actually, I probably wouldn't audiobook it. The audio I didn't think was great, but I would say it's worth a read, but it didn't quite hit the mark for me. The next book I finished was The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I have done a solo review of this, so I will link that below, and I won't talk about it too much, but needless to say, 5 stars, about a preacher who takes his family to the Belgian Congo just as independence occurs within the country. It was so good. Like I say, I've done a spoiler-free review, so go and check that out because I would highly recommend this book. The next book I finished was Salvage The Bones by Jesmyn. So my understanding of this book going in was that it was about a family in the lead up to Hurricane Katrina, and that is true. That is sort of the broad setup for this book, but that is very much the background. This is about a young girl, her position in her family, her opinion of herself and how that informs her actions. There is trigger warning here for dog fighting. You see her brother who raises up, I think it's an American pit bull, and his relationship with his family and with his dog, and their mother dies when they're young. You find that out right at the beginning, and so their father is raising these children, and yeah, it's about their experience really. And then Hurricane Katrina hits and it sort of covers that as well. I really liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. Jesmyn Ward is absolutely an author I want to read more from. Really enjoyed it. I think if you liked night crawling, you'll really like this. The writing style is very similar. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. I would definitely recommend. Then I picked up another middle grade book, The Crossover by Alexander Kwame. This was a winner of the Newbery Award for children's books. This was really well written, so it's written sort of in verse, in parts, almost like in rap sections, and we're following twin boys who play basketball, and it's their relationship with their father and their dynamic together and sort of their coming of age, and one of the boys gets a girlfriend, and it's about like their relationship together when that occurs. And I thought it was beautifully written, definitely worth a read, and yeah, just quite a different middle grade book from anything I've read before, and I think it will appeal probably to older middle grade readers. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. Then I read a short story. I read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, and I think most people know what The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is about. Headless Horseman. Yeah, it was a short story. It kind of gets the same response from me as most short stories. It was fine. There wasn't enough in it for me to care about the characters. Interesting sort of like twist ability to interpret at the end, but yeah, 3 stars. It was fine. Then I picked up The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. So this may be the weirdest book I've ever read. A boy wakes up one morning, needs to go to work. However, he discovers that he has turned into a bug. Sort of like, in my mind, picture like a cockroach. Large, human-sized cockroach. On his back, legs are sort of, you know, and he can't like get out of bed because he's stuck on his back because he's now some sort of cockroach beetle. Yeah, it was really weird. But I quite liked it. Obviously, there's a lot of metaphor in this. Like I said sort of earlier, I'm not really interested in digging like into all of that stuff. But I thought it was quite a fun ride. I really enjoyed the dynamic between the main character, the bug, and his sister, and like the family dynamics. And yeah, I quite liked it. It was a wild ride. Then I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I buddy read this with Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot and Fraser from Fraser Simon's Springboard Thoughts, and I adored it. I adored this book. So in this we follow, again, a cast of characters, and they are on a spaceship, the Wayfarer, and they sort of dig tunnels in space. If you're not a sci-fi person and you think that sounds a bit complicated, Gemma, it really isn't. The sci-fi, I would say, is minimal or secondary to the character plots, and that was what I loved about this book. The characters, the diversity of characters, the imagination in the backstories of all these characters, and you just love them. You love them all because they are all such interesting characters, and you see their dynamic with each other, and it was beautiful. If you love character, you should read this book, and this is the first in a series, so I will be picking the next one up again with the same group of people in November, and I can't wait. Becky Chambers has definitely become a favourite author this year. There will be another book from her in a moment, so yeah, love her. Brilliant. Then I read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This is a middle grade. There are Greek gods within this book. Percy Jackson is, I think most people know, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that he is sort of a demigod or a hero, like the son of a god. And yeah, I didn't like it. Unpopular opinion. This is like a really popular middle grade series, and perhaps if I had read it as a child I would have enjoyed it more, but it didn't work for me. It felt too Americanized, and I think this is because I love Greek myth so much, and I quite like my Greek myth to occur in Greece, and this was just, you've got gods like living in the Empire State Building, and it just, I just didn't like it. And I didn't like Percy Jackson's character. I thought he was a bit of a moron. The friendships I thought were weak and not well fleshed out. I could probably go on and on, but I don't want to trash people's favourite book. So no, I didn't like it. I won't be continuing with that series. I'm surprised I made it to the end of it, to be honest, but I kept hoping it would get better. It didn't. So I gave that 2 stars. Speaking of 2 stars, we have The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. So I'm going to preface this by saying, if you are not a complete cynic, you will probably quite like this book. I am much too cynical for this kind of thing. Lots of believe in yourself and like inspirational quotes and yeah, and just like, for example, so this is all told in like little vignettes. Some are larger than others, but it's very much like little bits and pieces, and I didn't read it all in one go. I read like a couple a day, but yeah. An example: experience one beautiful thing a day, however small, however trivial. Read a poem, play a favourite song, laugh with a friend. It's just not for me. It's not my jam. The sort of thing I respond to is like, Gemma, grow a pair, put your big girl pants on and suck it up and go and do what you're supposed to be doing. I don't respond well to like the cuddles. It just gives me the ick. I'm just too cynical for this. There was another bit, I'm going to try and find it. Okay, so this page, right, he puts a load of stuff, and then the title is delete the italics. So, I am not popular enough. And the idea is you delete the not popular, and so you just repeat I am enough. But it just made me laugh because I was going through it, and so some of these, I am not clever enough. I feel like that all the time. I don't care. It's reality. I am not rich enough. Also a true fact in my life. I am not young enough. Yeah, my kids will tell me that every day. I am not well travelled enough. Also true, because I'm not rich enough to afford to go on lots of lovely holidays. So I look at this with a cynical eye. It really wasn't for me. I really didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. Luckily, the last book I finished of the month was another corker, and that was A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, as referred to earlier. And this is the first in a current duology, though I've heard rumours it might be a series, which would be amazing because this book was so good. We follow a young monk, sibling Dex, who is a non-binary monk and sort of decides one day that they want to do something different with their life and become a tea monk, which is basically going around and talking to people and giving them tea and cheering them up. And one day he bumps into a robot, moss cat. And it's just about their friendship, about them learning about each other. There are some like higher political things going on within the world. And it just, the whole time, I listened to this on audio. The audio is very good. The whole time I listened to it, I was smiling because it's just a warm hug of a book. And it's just about friendship and being kind to people. And I say that having just said I was too cynical for this. But it just, the way that Becky Chambers writes, just like, it just hugs your heart. It just hugs your heart. 5 stars. I did have one DNF, and that was The Humans by Matt Haig. Obviously, that's 2 books by Matt Haig in 1 month, and this one got 2 stars, the other one got DNF'd. I think he's just not a writer for me. The Humans is about like an alien that comes down, inhabits some bloke's body who's discovered like the secret of the universe or some bollocks, and I just didn't care. I think I listened to about 4 hours of it. No, maybe not even that much. 2 hours. Anyway, I really didn't like it. I didn't care about any of the characters, and I think it was going in the direction of, you know, this alien was going to learn to love humanity, but yeah, not for me. So now we are on to the Booky Bank. Are you excited? So if you saw my last haul, which was a ridiculous number of books, I decided I need to be more accountable, and so I am going to give myself tokens each month. So if I read 2 physical books, I get a pink token. If I read 2 audiobooks, I get a yellow token. And if I read 3 ebooks, I get a green token, and then I can use them to purchase books at whatever point in the future. Just to stop it being a case of I've got loads of books coming in and I'm not getting any read. So let's start with physical. So obviously this will only include books that are on my TBR. So any books that I borrow from the library or Libby or Kindle Unlimited or whatever, none of those books count. It's only books that I'm physically removing from my existing TBR. So I finished these 4 physical books, which means I get 2 pink tokens. Yes, however, I've already spent them. So I picked up the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie, and yeah, I don't know a huge amount about this, but I know that Kieran at KD Books wangs on about Salman Rushdie all the time. I did actually DNF Midnight's Children earlier this year, but I think it was an audio problem rather than a book problem. So I'm going to try this. And also, even if I don't like it, what I really don't like is authors getting stabbed for having written fiction. So my small contribution to supporting Salman Rushdie. And I also picked up The Barefoot Woman by Scholastic Makasonga, translated by Jordan Stump. This has been longlisted for the Bailey Gifford Prize. I was watching Jen the Librarian's video on this the other day, and she like completely gave me FOMO. So I saw this in Waterstones and I picked it up. This, I believe, is about the Rwandan genocide, but it's non-fiction, so it's like someone's real experience in that. I know very little about the Rwandan genocide, and so I'm interested to try this. This author also wrote Our Lady of the Nile, which I've seen Bob the Booker are talking about this year, and I had also added to my list of books I'd like to read. I didn't really realise they were the same author until after I bought the book, but yeah, so very much excited to get to that. But that means that I now have no pink tokens left. Ebooks, I read 4 from my existing TBR, which means I get 1 green token. And audiobooks, I read 4. I did read quite a lot that were on Audible Plus or from Libby this month, so I get 2. Is that 2? Oh, nearly snuck an extra one in. So 2 yellow tokens. So over the course of October or into the future, I will limit myself to 1 ebook and 2 audiobooks, and not buy anything else until I can add some more tokens at the end of October, hopefully. Okay, apologies if the positioning, lighting, etc. has changed. My camera just decided to stop recording. So, yes. So, one last thing, obviously, because I will no longer be doing hauls, I will cover all new purchases within the Booky Bank section of my wrap-ups going forwards. I did just want to mention a couple of books that I was gifted. Gifted books do not count to the Booky Bank. If I'm gifted a book, I'm just going to say thank you very much and accept them. So my lovely friend Jack at Spread Book Joy sent me 3 books the other day because she is adorable. So I just thought I'd quickly share them with you now. So the first one is Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. So this is the first in the Mistborn Era 2 series. So it takes place in the what is like the world called? Anyway, so I do actually have Elantris on my shelf, and the first in Mistborn Era 1 and the first in the Stormlight Archives on my shelves. So now I also have the first in this series, and I really need to get to some Brandon Sanderson. It will happen next year. I have a buddy read, so it will definitely happen next year. So yeah, she sent me this one. I don't know too much about it. I don't really want to read too much into it until I've read Mistborn Era 1. So yeah, but thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it. And then she sent me 2 middle grade books. So the first of which is Alex Neptune, Dragon Thief by David Owen. So this, I think, won like Waterstone's Book of the Month, Children's Book of the Month a couple of months ago, and is about a boy who steals a water dragon, I believe. So it sounds quite fun, sort of like just a nice, fun, childy adventure story, and I'm going to read this with my eldest son Sam, so I really appreciate it because I love reading books with Sam, so that one will go in that pile. And then she sent me another middle grade book which I may read with Sam, but to be honest I might just read it to myself, and that is Once Upon a Fever by Anghard Walker. And I think this is a bit of a sort of like post-apocalyptic book. I think it follows 2 sisters, and the world has this fever and they're trying to cure it, and I think it's magical and fantastical and all those sorts of things. I think Jack did a solo review for this one. If she did, I will link it below. She definitely has reviewed it. So if you don't follow Jack's channel and you are at all interested in middle grade books, definitely go check her out. She does talk about adult books as well, but she is like the queen of middle grade. So yes, I am very much looking forward to getting to that one as well. So thank you, Jack, for sending me those 3. As I said, they don't count towards my like book buying reduction method, so I just wanted to mention them here. I think we are done. So thank you everyone very much for being here. If you missed my previous the wrap up of my Shorty September books, I'll leave that link here for you, and I will catch you all very soon with another one. Bye guys.